Howdy, y'all. The points are here. All right. This is what we've been waiting for on Pins and Needles. The points for AOS 3.0 Seraphon have been released. Thanks to Facehammer TV. I'll link to their video below. They gave us a sneak peek of all the points. And so we're going to be looking at the Seraphon ones and what's good, bad, what happened. Where are we at? Is the sky falling? Is it all over? Am I throwing my models away? No. So, before we get into this, I think it's critical to realize that this is a new edition of AOS, and it looks like they're heading more towards less models on the table. And so I think we're going to see we do see points increase across the board for all of Age of Sigmar. So keep that in mind as we look at all these point changes, that basically every army got a point increase. And so if we have a little bit of a point increase, it's not that big a deal. A huge one we may have to worry about. You don't really see a whole lot of point drops. So with that said, let's start off with some good and bad news for Seraphon. So the bad news, we lost Sylvaneth as an ally. I'm not sure if you ever used Sylvaneth as an ally, but if you did, they have been removed from our pitch battle profiles as an ally choice. We also have no points for bound endless spells listed there. This is huge. This is sad because bound endless spells were kind of our trick in the bag there. And so if they have indeed completely removed bound endless spells from the game, that's a big hit to us. So the way endless spells work now is that you control it if you cast it, as long as it's within 30 inches of you. Each wizard controls one, and so you kind of have that mechanic already. But having our own bound ones would have helped in controlling that back and forth. That still happens in each hero phase. So not having any bound endless spells is kind of rough. We'll see what the FAQ does about that, if indeed they are just completely gone. So we have a couple things like spells that will specifically affect bound endless spells or unbound endless spells and turn them bound. So there's going to have to be something that's addressed there in the FAQ about that. But that is some pretty big news about no bound endless spells in the pitch battle profiles. As I said before, there are point increases across the board. Almost all of AOS is going to get point increases here. And so keep that in mind as we look through it. The good news is we do have a new ally. So Cities of Sigmar we have as a new ally. That is a big pool to select allies from. So if you're looking for a specific unit that Seraphon doesn't have, that Cities of Sigmar might have, this new ally pool that we have in Cities of Sigmar is pretty big. So maybe like some Phoenix Guard. You want some of the toughest infantry in the game? There you go. We did have some point decreases. That's some good news. We had some point decreases. So we'll get to those first. We'll cover the point decreases first. There's our point decreases with the new... the Bastildon with snakes got split out into its own profile. And as you would expect, the Bastildon with snakes did get a pretty hefty point decrease of 35 points. I still don't know that I would take it. That Bastildon with the snakes is absolutely terrible. Its melee profile is real bad. So unless they adjust something, maybe they could fix it with some War Scroll updates and it would be worth 185 points. But maybe it could be a good distraction for 185 points. It's definitely our cheapest monster in the game, in Seraphon. Maybe not in the game, but in Seraphon, it's the cheapest monster. So there may be something there, but I still don't think I'm going to take the Bastildon with snakes. We also got a 5-point decrease in Saurus Sunblood. He has a little bit of use before in like a source list where you could apply his buff to an enemy unit. At just minus 5 points, I still don't know that I'm gonna look to build a list around him. But if you've got those extra points, maybe he's worth taking. If you need a foot hero, he's a decent option, in that he does give a decent buff. We had a couple with no point changes. Oh, just one. The Saurus Scarvet on Cold One. I still like him. He's actually pretty good if you're running a cavalry list, but as we've seen recently with unit coherency and the nerf to Kotal's Claw, I'm not real sure you're running a bunch of knight spam, which he would be good in. And you still always have the Scarvet on Carnosaur that you can just upgrade to, which is usually a better option anyway. But no change there. Now we're going to get to our point increases. As I said, there are a lot of point increases. So we'll look through these and we'll go through them. I got this handy chart. I was doing this at the same time. James Dreadguard on Twitter was doing the same exact spreadsheet. I'll link to his. I'll put his in the comment below if you want an actual picture of it. But here we got the units. Their old point is under that 2020 column. 2021 is the new point cost and their change and percentage. So let's just start at the top and go through it because I think there's some interesting things here. So our Engine of the God only went up 5 points. Now, when we're looking at everything in AOS is going up about 10 points, I think is kind of what that average looked like. This is not a bad change. This is actually pretty good. He's only going up 2%. But that 5-point change is interesting in that this is going to actually lean me to taking the Engine of the Gods more often than I was if I was taking, if I was looking between it and a Stegodon Chief. Because as we'll get to here in a little bit, if you look down at the bottom of there, the Stegodon Chief got a lot more expensive. And so this Engine of the Gods is now a pretty good option if you're looking for a beefy hero monster that has some unique abilities to it as well. Ripperdactyl Chief went up 5 points. He could have gone down 5 points, and I probably still wouldn't have taken a Ripperdactyl Chief and Ripperdactyls. But it is what it is. It didn't go up quite as much as some of the other stuff, but it did go up 5 points. We'll skip past them. Skink Starseer only went up 5 points. I'll take that. He's still quite useful in giving extra long charges, giving a +1 to his save, and he's a spellcaster. Gives extra command point. So still not a bad unit. A Slann, the normie Slann, only went up 5 points. So this I really like. I think he's still a great option, a great alternative to taking Croak. If you don't want to pay the full 430 points for Croak, a normie Slann is a great pick, especially once you give him a Warlord trait and a command trait, a general trait, whatever they're called. Sorry. And so you can get him to be actually pretty powerful. Now he's not gonna do as much damage as Croak will, but he's still a great option, and especially for only going up 5 points, I'm happy with that. The Saurus Scarvet on Carnosaur. Now this right here, I think, is the big winner from this entire thing. He only went up 5 points from 210 to 215. That is an incredible steal right there. Only going up 5 points, and so. Already right now, I'm looking at the Engine of Gods and the Scarvet on Carnosaur as my two big winners. They only went up 5 points. These are guys that I like. These are big, hefty monsters. And so I like those a lot. Now, if you contrast that Scarvet on Carnosaur to down, all the way down at the bottom, the Old Blood on Carnosaur went up 40 points to 270. So you're talking the difference between a Scarvet is 215 and the Old Blood is 270. I'm taking the Scarvet every single day. I was already taking the Scarvet over the Old Blood. And so this is a no-brainer. Take the Scarvet on Carnosaur over the Old Blood. Unless they do something weird with the FAQ and change the Old Blood's War Scroll card. His command ability right now is a +1 to hit, and so I can get that anywhere. I can get that for free in the core rules for AOS. So Scarvet on Carnosaur, great value right now, especially going up 5 points. Kroxigor went up 10 points to 150. I need to get some games in with Kroxigor now. Because they come in size of 3, if you take them in a unit of 6, which would cost 1 reinforcement point, I think that's really where they get their bang for their buck is in a unit of 6, but it's going to be hard with unit coherency. Since they have 6 models, you got to keep them basically rank and file for these Kroxigor. You can get a little bit funny with their alignment, but it's going to be hard. They won't be getting all of their jaw attacks in. So as an MSU unit, they're not bad for 150, And so I think that's where you're going to run them, because you're probably going to end up spending your reinforcement points other places. And especially now that they don't fit into the Thunderquake battalion, I think they're going to see a lot less play. Salamander Hunting Pack went up 10 points to 120. They did not get the single keyword, so you can spend a reinforcement point to up them to a unit of 2 salamanders. But you're probably spending that RP, the reinforcement point, on skinks. Maybe you're spending it here. In Coalesce, you're not spending it here because you don't want that bravery to hurt you. But in Fangs of Sotek or Dracothian's Tail, you're probably spending those reinforcement points on something else. So you're looking at salamanders as running them single, just one salamander by itself, and they went up 10 points. That's fine. That's about average of what I would have expected with these point increases. The Astrolith Bearer went up 10 points, so that went up from 140 to 150. Again, not unexpected with all these point increases, but what we're doing is we're just kind of piling on. We're piling on. All these little increases to these units that you normally take are going to add up. He's still worth it. The Astrolith Bearer is still a great unit. Provides extra casting, extra range, a 6-up ward save, and he's a totem, so he can spend those command points in an 18-inch radius. So that's nice. The Source Knights went up 10 points from 100 to 110. This is on par what I would expect. I think I plan on running my Knights as MSU, I think, and using them as probably my preferred screens once I get into my Monster Mash list. I'll probably be using those guys. So they're still fine. Source Old Blood went up 10 points. This is another one of those of like, they just said, okay, we got to raise it 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, 10 points. Because I don't know anybody who's run an Old Blood on foot anytime recently. I know I sure haven't. Even when I'm running like warrior blobs in the previous book, I usually wouldn't take an Old Blood. I'd take the one on Carnosaur. So especially if I can now upgrade that Old Blood on foot to a Scarvet on Carnosaur for 95 points. I think I'm going to do that. The Skink Priest, he went up from 70 to 80. That's fully expected. That does go up a little more than the 10% increase, but the Skink Priest was quite good for what he did. You can see my last video from a while back where we talked about how good he was for 70 points. So 80 points is not unexpected. He still has a lot of value in a skink-heavy list. The Star Priest also went up 10 points. Do you see a trend here? Also not unexpected. He's kind of the linchpin of a lot of our skink lists. Unfortunately, he does have a tendency to get sniped out pretty quick. So now he's at 130 points every time he gets sniped out. It's going to hurt a little bit more, especially once we're not really. Fangs of Sotek isn't quite as potent as it used to be, but I think we can still make a good list out of it. Pterodon Chief went up 10 points. Again, one of those units that I think they clicked the button. They clicked the button because, I mean, at 70 points, I think he was pointed about right. He only has one job, and that's the buff to Pterodons. And the Pterodons aren't nearly as good in AOS 3 as they were previously. Bastiladon with Solar Engine went up 15 points. That's less than a 10% increase, so I will take that. I like that. It does make it a little bit more expensive, and it has a little bit less utility now because you can't double fire it in. Well, you can double fire one. You can't double fire multiple in Thunderquake anymore. So I'm fine with that change. Razordon Hunting Pack went up 15 points. This was an odd one. That's almost a 20% increase for Razordons, which I haven't touched since our Battle Tome came out. At 95 points for one, are they worth it now? They still do have some tricks in that they can shoot in the charge phase. They have a lot of shots. Well, it's a random amount of shots, but I don't know. I think I'm going to spend my 95 points somewhere else. Maybe there's some tech there. We need to delve into that in the new book. Source Eternity Warden, just absolutely useless. Don't take him for 110. Don't take him for 125. So maybe I don't know. Let's skip that. Source Guard go up 15 points from 100 to 115. This is just kind of, adding on. I would have liked to have seen them just only go up to 110, but they seem to like these 5-point increments nowadays. So they go up to 115. I think they're still going to be required if you're taking a Slon or Croak. So just add them into your cost, because you can't afford to have Croak just plinked off the board and getting unlucky with those rolls. You need to have these ablative wounds here with the guard, especially if you have a Slon. You definitely need that for his wounds. Source Warriors go up 15 points from 90. We've discussed the problem with Warriors in the past couple videos, and that problem just gets worse by increasing their cost. Maybe I could have understood if they went to 100 just with the overall AOS increase, but 105 just kind of rubs some salt in that wound. Warriors are in a rough spot right now. Skinks, this was probably the most anticipated change from everyone, and they got a hefty increase. They went from 60 to 75. And so that's a 25% increase. That's a pretty hefty increase in terms of Warhammer and Age of Sigmar. Getting a 25% increase is a pretty big deal. And some of us were holding out hope that they would get a minimum unit size of 20 so that we could still run a big blob. But no, they're at 10. So your max amount of skinks you're going to be seeing on the table is 30. Because all you can do is, in one unit, sorry. You're going to have to spend 2 RP, 2 reinforcement points to get them from 10 to 20 to 30. And you can do that twice, so you can have two hordes of 30. But, man, I've got so many skinks. From 90 points up to 115, 25-point increase for almost 30% price hike for Chameleon Skinks. I liked them. I liked them a lot for their utility, but now you're not going to be able to spend your reinforcement points on them because you got to spend that somewhere else. And so now you're going to have MSU units of Chameleon Skinks, which they do okay. They're harassing, but where they really got their strength was in Fangs of Sotek, taking 15, 20 of these guys, popping them down, having a hero nearby so they can shoot and retreat. But now I think you're going to be seeing them in MSU units, if you're seeing them at all. 115 is pretty expensive for these guys, so they may see a lot less play. Stegedons went up 25 points, but they went from 240 to 265, but that's only 100 or a 10% increase. And so that's on par with what we're seeing with everything else, and that's not bad. That's not as bad as I was expecting. They can still be your battle line and Thunderlizards. We can still run quite a few Stegedons in our lists. Raising 25 points hurts, but it's not as bad as it could have been. So I'm okay with that. They're getting some buffs with the models, counting as 5 models on objectives, so I'm okay with those on increase there. Our source, Old Blood on Carnosaur. This is the one that is just blowing my mind. It went up to 270. The Old Blood on Carnosaur, 270, while the Scarvet stayed at 215. I don't understand this. Unless they're planning on reworking his command ability into something that's awesome, I don't see taking the Old Blood on Carnosaur anytime soon. Unfortunately, of my 4 Carnosaurs, one of them stuck as an Old Blood. The rest of them I magnetized. So we'll have to do something there. It is a 17% increase, so it's not as bad as like the Chameleon Skinks or the Skinks, but going up to 270 is really baffling for the Old Blood, especially when that Scarvet stayed at 215. Just don't get that one. Hold on. It gets worse. What is the skink oracle on Troglodon, who they can never figure out the points for this thing. Went from 220 to 270. What? 270 for the Troglodon? Uh, maybe it's War Scrolls getting totally redone. But 270 for the Troglodon is absolutely insane. No, thank you. Like it at 220, I was considering taking it with Croak so that you can get his spells in range. But at there's just not enough room for 270 in a list to throw Troglodon in there with Croak. No, and there's no. I mean, you could put him in with a Slon, but obviously that's not nearly as useful there. Troglodon 270. Whew, man, I don't get that. Here's a big one. Stegodon with Skink Chief up to 305. So it went from 250 to 305. Ooh, man. That's a big change. That's 55-point increase. It's only a 22% increase. Only. I mean, that's a big deal. That's about twice what most of AOS is getting, but 55 points to 305. Now, I know he's good. And there used to be a lot of decisions to make between the Engine of the Gods and the Stegodon with Skink Chief. I think that decision just got a little. Where I might say I would take 2 Stegodons on Skink Chief and no Engine, I'm probably going to save that extra 40 points and take an Engine along with my Steggy Chief there. That is a big increase. I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do with that Stegodon Chief now, and with these hero and monster rules. I think we're gonna have to go on a specific video on what to do with the Stegodon Chief now, because there's some really cool stuff you can do. Turn him into a wizard, cast a spell that gives him +1 to damage, and all of a sudden, all those weapon profiles that have a lot of stuff are doing 3 damage instead of 2. Okay. So. I'm okay with that. It's expensive. I'm okay with that. In that usually I'm taking that Stegodon Chief in a list that has a bunch of monsters in it, so I'm fun anyway. I'm gonna pump those guys up as much as I can. It is expensive now, and it does make my decision on bringing my Engine of the Gods a lot easier. And so, yeah, 305. That's expensive. Lord Croak, as we know, increased. I kept him on here. His points increased along with the new model recently with the Broken Realms Kragnos. So he's up to 430 now. That is a pretty big hike, but he comes with a whole new War Scroll. So I think he's worth it. There's going to be times where he gets killed, poof, after taking a couple wounds. That's going to feel real bad. But in the end, I think he's still worth that 430 points for what he can do. And statistically, he should be able to stay alive a while, especially if you bring some guard with him. He's not going to do as much damage as he used to, but he is going to be a command point factory for you. And there's a lot of stuff to do with command points. So, overall, I don't want to make this too long. I think the winners here for me are the Engine of the Gods only going up 5. The Scarvet on Carnosaur only going up 5 is a huge win, especially compared to that Old Blood on Carnosaur. I think those are my 2 big winners. Knights didn't go up too much, and so I'm happy to still play with them. Salamanders didn't get the artillery keyword, which some of us were that they were going to get. So still our only piece of artillery is an Engine of the Gods, which is just kind of strange. So big losers are definitely the Old Blood on Carnosaur and the Troglodon going up to 270. No thank you. Warriors are still the losers. They are for AOS 3. I also have like 90 warriors that probably won't see the table very much. So one of these days. So let's look at a couple of lists. Let's look at some of my favorite lists here. So this is my Fangs of Sotek list. And this is the one I've been playing the last year or so. And it's Croak, Astrolith, 2 Star Priests, 2 Priests, some Guard, and then a bunch of Skinks, some Salamanders, and Chameleon Skinks. That was 1940. That gave me enough room for a command point or a endless spell if I wanted it. in the previous book. Now, if we take these new points, we're looking at 2,345 points. This has gone up 400 points for this same list. So that's a huge increase. So not only am I going to have to drop some stuff, I'm definitely not going to have any room for a command point or endless spell there. So 400 point increase for that. Whew. That's pretty big. So if you thought Fangs of Sotek was overpowered, guess what? It got a 400 point nerf. Good grief. All right, let's look at my Thunderlizard list. So this was one that I took to a tournament. It was a Slann, Engine of the Gods, 2 Steggy Chiefs, 3 Stegodons, Bastildon, and then I had extra room for a Burning Head. Now that list comes in at 2170, so it's gone up 200 points as well. So a pretty big hit there. I've got to shave off 200 points. I mean, that's you're losing a Bastildon. That's what you're losing out of that list. You're losing a Stegodon. You're losing something out of that list, a big piece of that list. And so we've still got valid lists here. I don't want to say that like our book has been ruined. I don't think it has. I think we still have a lot of tools here. But you do have to get ready for these point increases, as does everybody. I think you're going to see a lot less models on the table. So let's look at some potential lists here. And these are very rough. I haven't run these through all the battalions yet. I think most things you can fit into some battalions. There's quite a bit of leeway in those core battalions, so I'm not too worried about that yet. This could be flexed according to that. I'm just looking straight at points. So I think you can still get a decent Fangs of Sotek list. That's that first one. You can still get Croak. You can still get the Astrolith. You can still get your 4 little buffing heroes. You can still get your 2 hordes of Skinks, some Guard, and some Salamanders. And all that fits into 2,000 points. Now, you're not starting with a command point. You might have to drop that unit of 10 Skinks to do that. You're losing a lot of hit potential with some Skinks you're losing. And your Salamanders will have to be split up into 3 individual units. So you're not going to be teleporting these things in to kill whatever you want. But you can get a decent list in Fangs of Sotek, I think. So I don't think that faction is dead by any means. I think it's still good. And your damage is definitely brought down a little bit, but you still have that flexibility that Fangs of Sotek list brings. You still got that board-wide reach with these Skinks. You still got your teleports. You still got your summoning. You still got Croak, who's a beast in casting. Now you've got 2 priests that can do all those priestly things. There's a bunch of priest things coming up that are really nice. You've still got those free buffs from the star priests. So I think Fangs of Sotek is still in a good place. You won't have to bring as many Skinks, but it's still in a good place. Notice most of these lists are not going to have any. They're not going to have any bound endless spells because we don't. Apparently, they're not going to be a thing. So you can drop stuff if you need to add in some spells as some regular endless spells if you want those. I think some of them still have some value. We'll talk about them later. The next list is, I think, a little bit more of a Croak monster mash list here. We've got a Croak, an Engine of the Gods. Hopefully you can do some summoning through that. The Astrolith to boost Croak. Some Saurus Guard down lower to help Croak on his ablative wounds. And then you've got that Scarvet on Carnosaur, who is just a great price point at 215. And 3 Stegodons to fill out your battle lines, be your monsters, grab objectives, all that kind of good stuff. So I think you've got a good balance there. This would probably be in Thunderquake. It would have to be in Thunderquake, obviously. But that engine, you could fire that engine off twice. You don't have a Bastilled on this list to try to get those summons or heals, extra heals, all that kind of stuff. You still got 30 points if any of our endless spells fell into that territory. Let's get a little crazy. Here we go. Let's capitalize on those monsters. You know, I love the monsters. Let's look at this list. So we've got an Engine of the God, 3 Scarvets on Carnosaur, and 4 Stegodons. We're getting 8 monsters in here, and we're having fun. These things are all counting as 5 models on objectives, so you can still score objectives. You got some heals from the engine. I like this list. I'm playing this list. I've got 3 Scarvets on Carnosaurs. I'm playing this list right here. I'm excited about this one. And it comes in at 1970. So fun list. Obviously, no wizards. You could turn one of those guys into a wizard if you wanted to with some of the battalions and stuff. I guess I'd need to make sure this actually fits in the core battalions. I don't know that it does. I hope it does. We'll see. The list on the right could be a lot of fun as well. We've got 4 Scarvenon Carnosaurs. So price perfect there at 215. I've got some screens of some Saurus Knights. So I'm going to spread those suckers out all on my front line, just end to end. And I'm gonna cover most of my deployment there with those guys. And then we've got 3 Stegodons as some extra beef there. It's got decent shooting with those Stegodons. It's got some nasty Carnosaurs. Again, no wizard, but let's just turn one of them into a wizard. Why not? That comes in at 1985. Obviously, we can kind of massage this a little bit. I'm throwing these lists together at the last minute, so let me know what you think. Obviously, I think we still got some potential here. It does kind of hurt seeing a lot of these point increases, but I think overall in all of Age of Sigmar, we're seeing those point increases. So don't let it get you down. Our army is still very playable, I think. It's probably not S tier now that Fangs of Sotek got hit real hard, but I think we still got some juice. So Fangs of Sotek can still do well. Monsters, I think, can still do well. Hold on. I got one more slide. There was 1 point decrease I didn't address, and you see me run him in a couple battle reports before in Seraphon. Gotrek actually dropped in points. He's down to 435. And he can be taken in any order army. So even though he goes over the allied points, but Gotrek 435. That is interesting. While everything else is going up in points, Gotrek goes down. 435. Man. All right. So let me know what y'all think. What's your list looking like? I need some lists in the comments below because I need to do some list building. This is the fun time of Age of Sigmar. You've got new battalions, we've got new rules, we got new points to do lists. Now we just need a good War Scroll Builder update. All right, guys. Catch y'all next time.